Now, in the United States, two agents involved in the fatal shooting of Alex Pretty in Minneapolis have been placed on leave. The killing has sparked a public outcry across the United States and put the Trump administration on the back foot. It has now pulled the controversial ICE chief, Gregory Bovino, out of the city and replaced him with Donald Trump's so-called border czar, Tom Homan. He's been speaking today to the press.
Where the people out there don't like what ICE is doing, if you want certain laws reformed, then take it up with Congress. You have the right to protest. I'm just asking to keep it peaceful. But threatening law enforcement officers, engaging in impeding and obstruction and assault is never okay. And there will be zero tolerance. You interfere, impede, assault an ICE officers, you will be arrested.
With me now, Philip Turle, our foreign editor. Philip, just give us a sense of the key points of what Homan had to say a short while ago.
Well, I think the most striking thing was the difference in tone between Gregory Bovino, who is much more go out and attack, and this much more measured response, very calm takeover by Tom Homan, trying really to calm things down after all these protests we've seen in Minneapolis over the killings of Rene Good and then Alex Pretty a few days ago. I think the authorities are trying hard to pull back a little bit to say, look, we have someone new in charge now in the form of Tom Homan, who's the border czar, who's worked under 5 US presidents since the 1980s. And Ronald Reagan, and he has been saying basically that the targeted arrests will continue. All ICE members who commit crimes or are not doing what they should do according to the book will then face the consequences. That's also a bit to calm the situation down, because there's been a feeling in Minneapolis and elsewhere in the United States that all of these ICE officers are acting with no one restraining them in or under any orders from anybody, and they can basically do what they like. I think that's also an effort to calm things down. He was saying, I came here to seek a solution. I've been talking to local officials. We agreed on many of the points that we discussed, including enforcing the law. The law has to be respected. But he said there was one point in which the local officials and he have not agreed on so far, and that is that ICE officers should be allowed to go into prisons, to prison cells, to arrest and talk to those who've been taken into custody if they are illegal aliens, because once they're set free from there, the work of the ICE officers is the same, but then they may have to rein in more people who will be trying to protect the suspected illegal aliens. So that was one of the points he said there was no agreement on. But there is an element in this which is a little bit more complicated to understand, and that is that Stephen Miller, who is the main architect of the immigration policy of Donald Trump, he's his chief of staff in the White House, has put a figure of 3,000 arrests a day in the United States of illegal aliens to get them out of the country. If you're only doing targeted arrests against murderers, illegal aliens, those who are released from lunatic asylums and who have come to the United States to cause trouble, you're not going to be able to arrest 3,000 people a day. So there is a bit of a difficulty to understand exactly where all of this is coming from. But certainly a much more peaceful message coming from Tom Homan than certainly we've seen over the past few days, in a bid, I think, by the authorities to calm the situation down.
All right, so a change in tone from Gregory Bovino. But in terms of strategy, Philip, big picture, has anything really changed?
Not on the bottom line, because Donald Trump was elected by many for his anti-immigration policy. They say that the Biden administration was far too generous, letting millions of people into the United States, and that has got to stop. Even Tom Homan was saying that out of all the presidents he's worked for, Donald Trump is the only one who's been able to stop the mass immigration, illegal immigration into the United States. That's why he is backing the efforts of Donald Trump. So, yes, there's been some pullback in Minnesota, but Donald Trump is not someone who's going to ever admit that he's wrong. This is the way that Donald Trump operates. He won't admit that he's made a mistake, and if he's criticized for making errors, then he will go on the attack. It's a bit like the policy we see by Donald Trump. Before you have time to actually take anything in, he'll announce something new, and then all the attention will be diverted towards all of that. So I think that the administration has certainly understood that there is a problem. there is an election coming up in November. They don't want this immigration policy to backfire on the Trump administration. That's why they're taking these steps now. That's why they've called in Tom Homan, who's a much more appeasing character than his predecessor, in the hopes that this may blow over and the administration can carry on with its anti-immigration policy in the same way that it's been doing up to now, but maybe a little bit more delicately than we've seen in Minnesota and in Minneapolis.